Hey guys, what is up? I just woke up, but we're gonna go over the grosses this week, so let's get into it. And Juliet continues to do well, doing 95% last week and 93% this week, going from 1,097,034 to 993K. A Beautiful Noise went from 54% to 61%, and 745K to 852K, and that is closing in June. Back to the Future went from 89% to 88%, and 1,113,824 to 1,050,936. Cabaret at the Kit Kat Club sold out and went from 1,731,227 to 823K. Although it did have 6 performances, and the average ticket was down because it opened. Now got very poor reviews from critics, but I still think it's going to do well. I just don't think it will be here a year from now, because it is so expensive to put on. Hadestown went from 97% to 99%, and 900,000 to 857,000. So again, it is falling week by week, but in a very small increments. So I am very happy that Hadestown is doing so well. Hamilton did 99.75 last week and 99.26 this week, and 1,972,707 to 1,897,663. House Kitchen, which opened, so it did have a lower ticket price and got very amazing reviews, surprisingly. So I definitely do think this will be a solid hit for at least through the Labor Day, although after that, not entirely sure. But House Kitchen did 96% last week and 97% this week for 7 performances, and 937K to 776K. Akimbo, which is closing this weekend, did 85% last week and 82% this week, and 474K last week and 511K this week. Lempicka did 94% last week and 74% this week, going from 344K to 354K with an average ticket of $56. Lempicka is flopping hard, and if it doesn't get a Best Musical nomination, it's gonna close. Even if it gets, it needs to get Best Musical, Best Book, and Best Score. At least those 3. Or at least those 2. And I don't know if that's gonna happen, because House Kitchen got amazing reviews, so that could take up the 5th slot. I think Suffs is going to get nominated because people really love that. I'm not going to see Suffs, because I listened to those songs, and it's so pandering. So I'm not seeing that. But you know what? I might see The Outsiders and House Kitchen before the Tony nominations, because in my opinion, I think Lempicka deserves it over those 2 shows. I think Lempicka and Suffs deserve it and need it, and I think Lempicka has a lot of industry support. And while, yes, I have seen the show, and the review is coming probably next week, just to give a quick spoiler, I thought it was really amazing, but then I definitely saw the structural problems, so I can understand why critics didn't like it and audiences aren't flocking to it. You know, is a lesbian storyline, so it isn't going to do as good as the other shows, and it kind of relied and needed to get amazing reviews. And, you know, the marketing isn't great. There's a lot of issues of why Lempicka isn't doing well. But, I think it deserves it over House Kitchen and, The Outsiders. And here's the thing, is, I haven't seen those 2 shows, but there were shows like The Outsiders and House Kitchen that, you know, are what I like to call musicals that I know. And they are, you know, relying on cliches, and they have very Broadway-sounding music. And yes, I know The Outsiders and House Kitchen is a jukebox musical. The Outsiders is not a traditional Broadway score. But when you see as many shows as I do per year, you start to get an idea of what kind of shows they're going to be, which is why I'm hesitant to see them. But I know that you guys are very much critical when I say stuff and I haven't seen it, and it isn't fair. But I am going to maybe try and see those 2 shows to see if I think Lempicka should win. Because again, Lempicka I think is a lot more innovative and original, more interesting, I'm eating a cough drop, than those 2 shows. But I can see the Tony Committee giving, you know, something like House Kitchen or The Outsiders, which is a structurally solid book, that's not a mess that some people are accusing Lempicka of. And it's not really, I wouldn't call it a mess. I could see them going with that versus Lempicka, which isn't as cliche. It's more out there, so it's going to come down to those two things. So it's going to be very interesting to see what gets nominated. We're going to have to see some upsets this season. I'm just going to say that. Yeah, Lempicka is bad states. Merrily did 1,465,504 last week, and 1,313,359 this week, selling out. Moulin Rouge went from 99% to 99%, and 1,388,633 to 1,400,282. 6 went from 96% to 97%, and 940K to 926K. Again, both of those shows are doing spectacular numbers. I don't normally cover plays, but Stereophonic, which is kind of the hit play, which I also might see, performed to sold-out capacity, and did 440K last week and 335K this week for an average ticket of $61. But again, it just opened, so it was going to be a little bit lower. Suff's opened, so its average ticket was down a little bit, but it performed to 98% last week and 93% this week, and 609K last week to 555K this week. And again, it's doing so much better than I thought it would have. And again, I think when it gets that Best Musical nomination, I think it will hit 7s and 8s, and this could be the surprise hit of the season. But again, I think a lot of these shows are going to do quite well now and in the summer, and so I don't think we'll see the real test until September and October, and you know that there's going to be definitely a good chunk of shows that will not make it and will close in January or December. One of those, which I think could be Suffs. Sweeney continues to do very solid numbers, doing 92% last week and 95% this week, outselling Merrily, going from 1,331,506 to 1,391,061. The Great Gatsby is the surprise hit of the season also. I was wrong. I know. Going from 93% to 95%, and 944K to 1,033,970. So it's doing amazing numbers. I do think it could fall off in the fall, but I didn't even think it was going to do this good. I thought it was going to be very front-loaded. So this could be a surprise contender, even though I think reviews aren't going to be good for it, because a lot of audience members don't like it, and I don't think it's going to get like a Best Musical win or nomination even. I still think this could be like you know, it doesn't do well with people, but again, because there's two very prominent actors in it, and it really appeals to like a younger crowd, and you know, it's based on a very famous book. The brand of Gatsby might take this show into next year even, which no one was expecting. And you know what, again, I don't want to see shows close. I was just seeing advanced sales and being like, not great. But it seems like advanced sales in this day and age matter a little bit less. But it still could flop. But we'll see. But for now, it's give it all its credit. The Heart of Rock and Roll is flopping, despite better than expected reviews, going from 74% to 80%, sorry, and 214K to 262K this week for an average ticket of only $37. The Notebook did 84% last week and 85% this week, and 778K last week and 772K this week. So again, it's doing solid numbers, but again, for the brand of The Notebook and how well it was doing before the reviews came out, this show was expected to do $1 million and to do really good, so it's kind of disappointing numbers. It's still solid numbers. It's not in danger of closing. It's not going to close by Labor Day. But if it doesn't make $1 million in the summer and it starts to fall into the 6s or the 5s or anything below a 7, this could close in January. Could this be the unexpected flop of the season? Because everyone was thinking The Notebook was going to do amazing and it was going to run for many years. I still think that's the case. Because I think that the show that it is and the target audience that it goes towards will come and see this show in droves in the summer. But who knows? I don't know. Definitely intriguing. But we'll see. The Outsiders is doing very well. Definitely going to run for many years. Last week it did 99%. This week 98%. Last week 787K. This week 889K. So it's doing phenomenal. The Who's Tommy is making $1 million. And did 84% last week and 82% this week. So despite the capacity being quite low, you know, its average ticket is quite high, $132, and it's making $1 million a week. And then The Wiz is continuing to be the surprise hit of the season despite very poor reviews, going from 93% to 98%, and 1,288,057 to 1,481,592. Wow, I think this could extend. I mean, it broke the Marquee Theater curse. You know, even though it's limited engagement, what show did this well, business-wise, in the Marquee Theater in, like, a decade? And then Water for Elephants, which is in need of that Best Musical nomination, performed to 72% last week and 82% this week, going from 945K to 1,032,068 this week, which is exactly where it needs to be, which is $1 million plus. I still think that this show could close in January, because I don't think it's going to get a Best Musical nomination. And out of all of the brand musicals, this is the weakest brand, and definitely the show that audience members are walking out of not loving. It seems like Water for Elephants and The Notebook definitely, the divided responses are starting to show in the box office. And while The Wiz and The Who's Tommy and The Great Gatsby, you know, either didn't get great responses from audiences or critics didn't love it, the brand of Gatsby and the stars that are in that, and The Wiz and, you know, the brands of these shows are really pushing them through what would kill most shows or would see shows stop its momentum, which is very interesting to see. So, guys, this season is full of unexpected twists and turns. I'm loving it. Definitely a much more exciting season than I thought, especially from a box office standpoint. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, and comment. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.